Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Vishnupadaya Bhutale Sundari Namo Vishnupadaya Vishnupadaya Bhutale Sundari Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaura Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Samanani Ki Jai Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare
Krishna Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare
Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna
Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare
Yashomati Mataji, I think we can't hear you.
Hello Mataji. My audio
Yes, Mataji, we can hear you now.
कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। श्री गुरु महाराज की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. This is Yashomati from Chicago, welcoming again all of you to mid-morning japa session. I thank all of you for attending this session. Please forgive me for interrupting your ecstatic chanting. Let us move to our next part of the session, which is Sri Caitanya Bhagavata. May I know who all have joined the class?
हरे कृष्ण यशोमती माता जी दंडवत प्रणाम शिला प्रभुपाद की जय गुरु महाराज की जय प्रीति दासी from Charlotte. हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna Priti Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you very much Mataji for joining every day and giving your beautiful association. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna, Yashomati Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas.
Hare Krishna Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you very much Mataji for joining every day and giving your beautiful association and services. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna ji, Yasomati Mata ji, Dandvat Pranam to you and all Vaishnava, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna Vrinda Gopika Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Srila Guru and Gauranga. Thank you very much Mataji for joining and very valuable time and association to give this Sangha. Mataji, very nice services, chanting very beautifully you are. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. This is Neetu from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna Nitu Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you very much Mataji for joining every day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam. So glories to Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharajas and all the assembled Vaishnavas. This is Kirtida Sundari Dasir.
Hare Krishna Kirtida Sundari Dasir Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you very much Mataji for joining every day and giving your services and very eagerly to hear you Mataji. Hare Krishna. Is there anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Yashomati Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. This is Indulekha Karuna Devidasi from Lincoln.
Hare Krishna Indulekha Karuna Devidasi Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you very much Mataji for joining every day and giving your beautiful services. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mata, Idam Pranam to you and all assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Sri Guru and Gauranga. This is Raj from Canada.
Hare Krishna Raj Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you very much Prabhuji for joining every day and giving your very beautiful association and services. Hare Krishna. So today before we start, I would like to read the Prabhupada's quote, October 20th, 1973. Simply we have to desire to please him and not desire anything for ourselves. Then we become simple instruments for his will. This is the important essence of Shri Krishna consciousness. Letter to Atreya Rishi, October 20, 1973. Hare Krishna. So welcome to Bhakti Sangha Japa group. Today we are so fortunate to have Her Grace Sri Kirtida Sundari Mataji to enlighten on the topic of Sri Caitanya Bhagavata Adi khanda, chapter 13, verses 69 onwards. So thank you very much Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much Mataji for giving your very valuable time and association to us this morning and enlightening us on this topic of Sri Caitanya Bhagavata. So I now hand over call to you. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat Pranams. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you Yashomati Mataji for warmly welcoming everybody on the call. And thank you each and every one of you for sharing your valuable time in hearing Shri Chaitanya Bhagavat. So thank you so much for your association. So we'll start now. Let's start with the Mangalacharan prayers and then we'll move forward with the session. Just ignore the background noise because there is some truck to pick up the garbage. So sorry for that. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhayeva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktāya Tadbhaktāya Namo Namaha Ananda Leela Maya Vigrahaya Hema Vadivya Chavi Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Ajanulambita bhujau kanakavadhatau sankirtanaicopitarau kamalayatakshav Vishvambara Dvijavarau Yugadharma Palau Vande Jagat Priyakarau Karunavatarau Jayati Jayati Deva Krishna Chaitanya Chandra Jayati Jayati Kirti Stasya Nitya Pavitra Jayati Jayati Bhritya Stasya Vishveshvamurte Jayati Jayati Nrityam Tasya Sarva Priyanam Mukum karoti vachalum pangam langayate girim yatkripahatam ham vande Shri Guru Deenatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So thank you all so much for joining. Thank you again for your wonderful association. So today we are reading from Shri Chaitanya Bhagavat, chapter number 13. It's Adi Khanda, chapter 13, entitled The Defeat of Digvijay Pandit. So defeating Digvijay is the title of this chapter, and we'll continue from verse number 69 onwards. So before again we start, I beg blessings, prayers, and wishes from each and every one of you. Today's session may little go technical, but as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Siddhanta Chitta Baliye na Karyalas, Iha lage Krishna lage Sudradamanas, that we have to go deep into Siddhanta. So please bless me so that, I can speak something relevant to this subject matter. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripasindhu vaevacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So we are in the chapter 13. Let me share my screen so you all can have the verses in front of you. I'm sorry, something got wrong. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. I don't know why this is coming. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just give me a few minutes. Hare Krishna. So can you all see the right screen? I don't know.
We can see the text, Mataji, text 69.
The text. Okay, perfect. So this is text number 69. So sorry for that delay. Okay, let's start. Apurva dekhila digvijay sushmita mane bhave e bhuji nimai pandita. Seeing that wonderful scene, Digvijay was astonished and thought, is this Nimai Pandit? So let's see what is the context. The context of this verse is, let's analyze the scene, let's envision the scene that in Navadvip, near the river, near the banks of river Ganga, Nimai Pandit is sitting with many of his students. And there Nimai Pandit got to know that today some Digvijay Pandit is going to come. And, he already knew about it. So he was discussing the grammar. We all know that Mahaprabhu used to teach, Nimai Pandit used to teach grammar to his students. So this is the setting of the scene. And it was on the banks of river Ganges where Nimai Pandit was sitting. And there, this Digvijay Pandit, he came. So the name of Digvijay Pandit is neither mentioned by Vrindavan Das Thakur in Caitanya Bhagavat, nor it is being mentioned by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But Prabhupada in the purport mentions that his name was Keshav Kashmiri. But we are sticking to Chaitanya Bhagavat, so we will call him as Digvijay Pandit. Why? Because Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur never mentioned his name. And because we are reading Chaitanya Bhagavat, we'll stick to this name, Digvijay Pandit. So this Digvijay Pandit, he came and Apurva Dekhila Digvijay Susmita, seeing the wonderful scene. That scene, what is the scene? That Nimai Pandit is sitting on the banks of river Ganga and he is teaching grammar to his students. So few students are surrounding. And Mahaprabhu is shining like a moon in the sky among all the stars. So, Mana Bhave E Bhuji Nimai Pandita. And in his heart, he thought, this Digvijay Pandit, he thought that, is this Nimai Pandit? Because he knew about the glories of Nimai Pandit, as soon as he entered Navadvip. Alakshita se sthane thaki Digvijay Prabhura Saundarya chahe eka drishti hai. Digvijay remained incognito. He didn't reveal that I am a Digvijay. Though Mahaprabhu came to know as soon as he entered the assembly, Mahaprabhu came to know that this is Digvijay Pandit who has been roaming throughout the Bharatvarsh, throughout this India, challenging everybody on this Shastra. He is doing Shastrarth with everybody and he is proclaiming that he is the Digvijay, means nobody can defeat him in this Shastrarth. So Mahaprabhu knew very well, but Digvijay, he remained incognito. He didn't reveal his identity and he steadily gazed at the beautiful form of the Supreme Lord. And yesterday we read those verses that how Lord was so beautiful. Ajanu lambita, his arms were touching onto his knees. So he was just gazing steadily, staring without blinking his eyes on the beautiful form of the Lord. Shishya sthane jignashila ei namadhana shishya bole nimai pandita khyatiyana. So though Digvijay Pandit, he knew that he is definitely Nimai Pandit, but still in one of the student, as soon as he entered the assembly, to one of the student he asked, what is the name of this teacher? Who is he? And Shishya Bole, the student replied, Nimai Pandita Khyatiyana, that he is famous in Navadvip as Nimai Pandit. Tave Ganga Namaskari Sei Vipravara Ailena Ishwarera Sabhara Bhitara. The best of the Brahmanas. So now Vrindavan Das Thakur is addressing this Digvijay Pandit as Vipravara. Vara means the best. Like we say, Giriraj as Haridas Varya. Varya means the best among all the servants. So he is the best among all the Brahmanas, Vipravara, the best of the Brahmanas. What he did, Ganga Namaskari, he offered his obeisances to river Ganga, and then he entered the assembly where Lord was sitting. Tahe dekhi Prabhu kichu ishat hasiya vasita balila ati adar kariya. Now see, our Nimai is showing the best of the Vaishnava etiquettes. So seeing this Brahmana, seeing this Digvijay, the Lord smiled, Hasya, because though he was incognito, but nothing is hidden from the Supreme Lord. So our Nimai knew who he was, so he just smiled. Hasya. And Vasita Balila Ati Adara Kariya. And then with very great respect, he offered him a seat, and he regarded that Brahmana in his assembly, and he offered him a seat just to sit down. Paramani Shanka se Digvijay Ara Tabhu Prabhu Dekhila Sadhasva Haila Tara. Although the Digvijay was very brave by nature and a champion of learning, he was nevertheless frightened on seeing the Lord. So now this happens when there is some quote, something is there in our heart. Then as soon as we come amongst the pure Vaishnavas, we could feel that the pure Vaishnavas have the potency to read our mind, right? I'll request everyone if they can just mute, because, okay, thank you. So, so as soon as we come in front of any pure Vaishnava, we feel that, that pure Vaishnava has the potency to read our mind. That's how we have that feeling. So if pure Vaishnavas have that feeling, then what to talk of the Supreme Lord? Now the Supreme Lord is sitting, and Digvijay, as he entered, though he was the champion of learning, and Mahaprabhu was just teaching some Sanskrit grammar, which is regarded as the Balya Shastra. Why? Because as soon as you want to know any of the language, you should know the grammatical part first, whether it's English language, Hindi language, or Sanskrit language, whatever language it is. The first is the grammar part, and Mahaprabhu was teaching the grammar. So he has not gone to an extent where he was explaining the figures of speech or the alliterations or some embellishments of ornaments, nothing like that. He was just teaching grammar, which is regarded as Balya Shastra, like Shishu, like child's play, because from childhood you should learn the grammar to know a subject matter fully. So Mahaprabhu was teaching that grammar, but this Pandit was a Digvijay Pandit, he was the champion of learning. But somehow, as soon as he came, he was little frightened upon seeing the Lord. That feeling was there in his heart. Why? Because he was not nishkapat. He had a little kapat in his heart, because he was very puffed up. He was very proud of his learning. So he got frightened on seeing the Lord. Ishvara swabhava shakti ei matahaya dekhite matrahaya sadha swajanmaya. The power of the Supreme Lord's natural characteristics is that the very sight of him produces fear. So this is the power of the Supreme Lord. That natural characteristics is that the very sight of him produces fear. Now, to this, Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur explains that danda dekhite ke kabu kahana uthai, that if somebody is standing with a stick in his hand and another person is without any weapon, then natural tendency is that the person who is without the weapons, he raises his hands. Why? Because he's afraid with the person who has a stick in his hand. Example, like the cops, when they have the guns, so naturally the criminal, he'll raise his hand, just showing the sign of surrenderance, right? Because he has no authority to challenge the cops. The cops have a gun with them, so he has no authority to challenge the cop. So similar was the condition of Digvijay Pandit. This Digvijay Pandit, Prabhupada explains, that was like a well of limited knowledge. So what a well can do in front of the ocean? Nothing. The well has no authority whatsoever in front of the ocean. So Digvijay was a well of limited knowledge. And our Gaura Chandra, our Gaura Sundar, our Nimai Pandit was an ocean of unlimited knowledge, right? So therefore, he naturally, that sense of fearfulness is there in the heart of that Digvijay Pandit. Shata pancha katha prabhu kahi viprasange jignashite tara kichu arambhila range. So after exchanging a few words of introduction, the Lord began to sportingly inquire from him. So what he is inquiring? प्रभु कहे तुम्हारा कवित्वेरा नहीं सीमा, ये ना हे ना नहीं यहाँ तुम्ही न कर वर्णन, गंगारा महिमा किछु करह पठाना, सुनिय सबारा हौका पापा विमोचन, शुनि से दिग्विजय प्रभु रावचन, से क्षणे करी बारे लगिला वर्णन, द्रुताय लागिला विप्रा करिते वर्णना, कथा रूपे बोले तारा की करी बेसीमा. So Prabhu kahe tumhara kavitwera means there is no limit. Nahi seema, there is no limit to your poetic ability. I know that you are a Digvijay. There is no limit to your poetic ability. Hena nahi yaha tumhi na kara varnana. There is nothing that you are not able to describe. You are such a learned scholar. So then Mahaprabhu instructed, very lovingly he requested, but quote unquote, he instructed Digvijay Pandit. Because remember previously verses we saw that how Mahaprabhu thought that I need to smash the pride of this Digvijay Pandit. But following the Vaishnava etiquettes, he thought that I am not going to do it in front of everybody, not in front of the entire Navadvip, but somehow I will smash this pride of this Digvijay Pandit. So Mahaprabhu knew very well. So he instructed him, please recite some of the glories of Ganga, since Ganga is flowing nearby and we are sitting on the banks of river Ganga. Why don't you recite some of the glories of the Ganga? Because even by hearing the glories of Ganga, the sins are destroyed. So why not just glorify Mother Ganga? So Suniye Digvijay Prabhura Vachana. As soon as Digvijay heard these words from the lotus mouth of our Nimai Pandit, in that very beginning, Shana, in that very moment, he started describing the verses glorifying Mother Ganga. And who can fathom the countless verses that the Brahmana so quickly recited? So in this regard, Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur also is saying that we should refer to, Caitanya Charitamrita. So yes, in Caitanya Charitamrita also, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains this entire pastime. And he explains that how Digvijay Pandit, when he came, he said that, he asked, okay, then this very proudly, Keshav Kashmiri, in that 1 hour, he recited 100 verses, Shata, as we saw in this verse. Suni se Digvijay Prabhura Vachana Sheshana Karibare Lagila Varna. In that very moment, he started describing. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita that in 1 hour, 100 verses were composed, and poetry, it was totally poetic. 100 poetic verses were composed by that Digvijay Pandit in glorification of Mother Ganga. So we'll just see, I'll just quote a little bit from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yeah. तुम्हारा कवित्व किछु सुनीते हमाना कृपा करी कर यदि गंगारा वर्णाना. So there he says that, therefore I desire to hear your skill in composing poetry, and why don't you describe the glory of Mother Ganga? So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes, Shuniya Brahmana Garve Varnite Lagila Ghati Eka Shata Shloka Gangara Varnila. When the Brahmana Keshav Kashmiri heard this, he became little puffed up. And within 1 hour, he composed 100 verses describing Mother Ganga. Right? So 100 verses. Eka Shata means 100 verses. He described by, he composed describing Mother Ganga. Shuniya Karila Prabhu Bahuta Satkara Toma Sama Prithvi Te Kavi Nahi Ara. Actually, let me share the verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita also. So we'll take a pause from Chaitanya Bhagavata right now, and we'll see the verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita, because that itself is so beautiful. Yeah, so you can see. Yeah. Shuniya Brahmana Garva Varnite Lagila Ghati Eka Shata Shloka Gangara Varnila. So he started glorifying. Shuniya Karila Prabhu Bahuta Satkara Toma Sama Prithvi Te Kavi Nahi Ara. The Lord said, Sir, there is no greater poet than you in this entire world. And then in a very sarcastically, he said, Tomhara Kavita Shloka Bhurjite Kara Shakti Tumi Bhala Jana Artha Kim Va Saraswati. Your poetry, that, the 100 verses that you composed, is very difficult to understand. Nobody can understand except you and your Ishta Devi. That is your Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. Only these two can understand whatever you have composed. So, in this regard, I was thinking that how Mother Saraswati, actually there are two Saraswatis. One is the Saraswati of learning in this material world that gave us the Jada Gyan, right? When we go to university, we go to colleges, schools, that the knowledge that we get of this material world is also from the blessings of Mother Saraswati. But the blessings of Mother Saraswati of this world, right? So that we are able to memorize the verses, or we are able to recite the verses, or even if we are able to compose, but of the material knowledge. But as soon as it comes to the spiritual knowledge, then the spiritual Saraswati comes into being. So this we have to understand. So now Digvijay Pandit was only up to the material knowledge. So he was worshipping the learning, the goddess of learning of this material universe, right? So he was worshipping him. And then Mahaprabhu states, that only you can understand and your Saraswati, the goddess of learning, can understand. Now Mahaprabhu has this authority of saying that you and your Mother Saraswati. Why? Because Mahaprabhu is actually the master of that goddess of learning. We all know how he is the master of goddess of learning. So he can use such words. So he very sarcastically remarked, Eka shloka artha yadi kara nija mukhe shuni sabha loke taba paibe bada sukhe. Then he said, but if you explain the meaning of one verse, we all can hear it from your mouth, and then we'll be very happy. So Mahaprabhu said, okay, you recited those 100 verses, you composed at that very moment. It was a spontaneous thing, right? Like, it's not that Digvijay was told that you will be speaking on such topics, so he already had something in his mind. No, it was spontaneous. Spontaneously he composed and spontaneously he recited those verses, and it was 100 verses in 1 hour. But then Mahaprabhu said, oh, okay, so, but it's better if you explain the meaning of one verse, because Mahaprabhu said, I am just a grammar student. I don't know anything. And you have composed. You are such a great learned. You have composed and you have recited, and it's beyond my capacity to understand. That's the humble position that Mahaprabhu is taking, that Avanimaya Pandit is taking. So he's saying that I am not able to understand. So better it would be that if you explain just the meaning of one verse, and tabe dig vijay vyakhara shloka puchila shata shloka eka shloka prabhuta padila. Then this Digvijay said, okay, you wanted me to explain the meaning of one verse, but which one verse? I have said 100 verses. In 1 hour I have composed. So which one verse meaning, you want to know? And it has been explained that how Digvijay Pandit was, the verses were coming out from his mouth like a cyclone, like a cyclone comes. So how the cyclone comes, it's a gush of wind that comes, right? So it was very hard. Similarly, those verses were coming out one after the another. And Digvijay was thinking that, okay, which verse you want me to say? Because I have said so many verses. So we'll stop that screen share now, and I'll share you the screen share of, I'm sorry, just because I want to draw parallels between Caitanya Bhagavata and Caitanya Charitamrita. Therefore, I'm just moving here, hither and thither, but just be with me. So, Kata megha shuni yena karaya garjana, ei mate jivatara gambhira pathana. The Digvijay's recitation, Vrindavan Das Thakur is saying that it was like the deep rumbling of clouds. Jiva apani saraswati adhisthana, ye bolai se haya atyanta pramana. Since Saraswati personally resided on the tongue of Digvijay, so whatever he spoke was definitely authorized. Manushera shaktataha dushke beka ke hena vidyavanta nahi bujhi beka ye. No human being had the ability to refute his speech, for no scholar could even understand him. So if you want to find out the faults, or you want to glorify somebody's, work, then at least the basic thing is that we have to understand. If we don't understand the class, then how can we glorify the class, or how can we find out the faults in the class, right? So similarly, any work done by someone, we have to first analyze it. We have to first understand the verse. Only then we will be able to glorify. Otherwise, if we just simply glorify without understanding, it will be simply flattery. Right? So the true glorification is, it comes out when we properly understand what the other person is saying, speaking, writing, or composing, right? Only then we will be able to glorify, or quote unquote, find faults if necessary, needed. But he said, no scholar could even understand him. So what to talk about, finding faults or glorifying it? The Lord Sahasra Sahasrayata Prabhu Rashishya Gana Avakhaila Sabashunina Varnana. The Lord's thousands of students who were sitting there, they all became speechless on hearing those descriptions, those 100 verses that Digvijay quoted on glorification of Mother Ganga. Why? Because they were still on the elementary level. They were learning that grammar from Nimai Pandit. So how can they understand, those 100 verses that Digvijay quoted? So they all became speechless. They were saying they were not able to speak anything. Rama Rama Adbhuta Smarana Shishya Gana Manushera E Mate Kispura Kathana. Rama, Rama, how wonderful, they marveled. Like we say, sadhu, sadhu, though they have not understood, but the way he was saying those verses, the way he was composing and reciting one after another without taking a break, make all the students so astonished. So they said, sadhu, sadhu. Now, this doesn't mean that they were simply flattering. Just though they were not able to understand the verse, but the way Digvijay was quoting, bewildered them, and they just said, sadhu, sadhu. It was such a marvelous work. No ordinary human being can speak like this. Jagate adbhuta yata shabda alankara sei bai kavitvara varna nahi ara. The most wonderful words and literally ornaments in the world were used. This figure of speech, analogies, these similes, these metaphors, all these figures of speech, these ornaments were used in the work of this Digvijay Pandit. Sarva Shastre Mahavisharada Ye Jana Hena Shabda Taha Sabara Bhujete Vishama. Even those who were fully conversant in the scriptures had very difficulty understanding the words of Digvijay Pandit. ए माता प्रभा खानी के दिग्विजय अद्भुत से पढ़ाई तथापि अंत नाई. The Digvijay continually recited in this amazing way for 3 hours without a break, without coming to an end. And choicest arrangements of words with beautiful metaphors were used in his composition. Padi yadi Digvijay haila avasara taba hasi bali lena Shri Gaura Sundara. When Digvijay finally finished his recitation, Shri Gaura Sundara simply smiled and he spoke. So what he spoke? Tomara e shabderera grantha abhipraya tumhi vine bhujile bhuja nahi aaya. He said, the purport of your words were so exalted that unless and until you explain it, nobody can able to understand. So he said, now you have to explain. Ekta ke apana kichu karaya vyakhana ei shabde ye bola tumhi say supramana. So therefore, he says, please explain the portion of your recitation. Eta ke apana kichu karaya vyakhana. You yourself give the purport, the understanding of those verses. Shei shabde ye bola tumi. Whatever words that you have said, supramana means you yourself will give the evidence of those verses, because it's beyond our understanding. So you have to tell the meaning of those verses. Shuniya Prabhura Vakya Sarva Manohara. Now hearing these words, it's such a pleasing to hear for Digvijay that, he thought that Mahaprabhu is appreciating him. And he thought, and he became more in pride, he became more proud of his composition. So hearing the Lord's enchanting words, Vyakhya Karibere Lagina Vipravara, the best of the Brahmanas, then began to explain. Vyakhya karile matra prabhu se shane dushilena adi madhya antatina sthane. But as soon as he began to explain the verse, the Lord immediately pointed out faults in the beginning, middle, and end of the verse. So we'll stop here. Stop means stop Caitanya Bhagavat, and we'll see now Caitanya Charitamrita, because Caitanya Charitamrita describes that what verse Mahaprabhu was talking about. So Digvijay said that I have said 100 of verses. Now which verse explanation you want? And Mahaprabhu quoted this verse. So this is the verse. This is from text 41. Text 41 from Adi Leela, Caitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter number 16. Mahatvam Gangaya Satatamidam Abhati Nitaranam Yadesha Shri Vishnu's Charana Kamalotpat Murti Subhaga Dvitya Shri Lakshmi Eva Suranare Archaya Charana Bhavani Bharturya Shirasi Vibhavati Adbhuta Guna. So this was the verse that Mahaprabhu recited. And Mahaprabhu said, okay, now you have to tell me the meaning of this verse. And Digvijay Pandit was simply bewildered, was simply perplexed after when he heard Mahaprabhu reciting this verse. And then what Digvijay Pandit said, E Shlokera Artha Prabhu, E Shlokera Artha Kara Prabhu Yadi Baila Vismitahaya Digvijay Prabhu Rapuchila. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him to explain the meaning of this verse, the champion, very much astonished, inquired him as follows. What he says, Jhanjhavata praya ami shloka padila, tara madhya shloka tumi kaicha kanthe kaila. He says, Jhanjhavata means like a cyclone, like a gush of a strong wind. I was reciting the verses. How come that from the middle of those entire verses, you picked up one verse and now you yourself is reciting that verse? So how come it is possible? Because see, if something is from the Shastras, then we can know that, okay, somebody knows the Shastra, so it's easy to memorize and it's easy to speak. But this was not something Shastric. It was spontaneously composed and spontaneously recited by Digvijay Pandit. So Digvijay Pandit, he was very much perplexed that how come Mahaprabhu can pick up my own composition work? I just recited, and that too not very slowly. It was just like a cyclone. I recited 100 verses. How could Mahaprabhu can exactly quote the same verse and tell me that, explain me the meaning of this verse? So he was literally perplexed, bewildered. But then he asked, how come that you are able to recite? Prabhu kahe devera vara tumi kavi vara aiche devera varo ke hoj haya shruti dhara. Then Mahaprabhu said that you have become a great poet, Kavi Vara, the great poet. You have become a great poet because of the blessings of the Lord, because by the grace of the Lord, you have become a great poet. So by the grace of the same Lord, I am Shruti Dhara. Who is Shruti Dhara? Who can remember immediately. Just by once hearing, if somebody remembers, that is known as Shruti Dhara. That person is known as Shruti Dhara. So Mahaprabhu is saying that by the grace of the Lord, someone may become a great poet. And similarly, by his grace only, someone can become a great Shruti Dhara, who can memorize, immediately everything. So I am that one who has memorized everything. Shlokera artha kaila vipra paiya santosha prabhu kahe kaha shlokera giba guna dosha. So, okay, hearing this statement, somehow Digvijay Pandit was very much satisfied. He said, okay, you have quoted the verse, that's okay. But then Lord said, okay, now you have to tell me the qualities and faults in this verse. So in the interest of the time, I'll not go with the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita, but in crux, what happened was that when Mahaprabhu told him that now you have to tell me the faults also, then Digvijay Pandit said, faults? What are you talking about? There is not an iota of fault in this, in the verses, the 100 verses that I've composed. No faults as such. But it's only full of ornaments. It's only full of that alankar, that figure of speech. There is no faults as such. But Mahaprabhu said, no, there are faults, so you just have to tell. He said, no, there is not an abhas, not even a tinge of fault is there in my verses. But Prabhu then said, okay, if you say so, then I can pinpoint those faults in your verses, provided you don't become angry, right? So this is the learning that we all should have. First of all, we should not find out faults in others' works unless and until we have the authority. If somehow we have the authority, if somehow we have been asked to say the feedback, we don't have to say it in an agitating way, by giving some agitation to the heart of another person. we have to say it very calmly, even if those faults have to be pinpointed. But along with the faults, some best part also has to be highlighted. And that's what Mahaprabhu did. Mahaprabhu said, see, I am going to tell you the faults. There are 5 faults I'll pinpoint in your verse, and also I'll pinpoint the 5 ornaments, the 5 good things, the 5 embellishments in your work. I'll tell you, provided you don't get angry. Then Digvijay said, okay, you don't know anything. You are just Vyakran, you just teach Vyakran. What do you know anything of the figure of speech, all these alliterations and all? You don't know anything. But still, because you have said that there are faults, then okay, I'll just tell you, I'll just ask you, okay, pinpoint all the faults that you see in my poetry. Though my poetry is faultless, but because since you are saying it, I'll just request you, okay, find out faults in my work. Mahaprabhu said, okay, now you have to hear whatever faults I'm pointing out, but you have to promise me that you'll not become angry. So I'll share you the verse, and then we'll see what 5 faults Mahaprabhu pointed out and what 5 ornaments also that Mahaprabhu pointed out. So I'll share you the screen. This is the verse. Yeah. Mahatvam Gangaya Satatam Idam Abhati Nitaranam Yad Esha Shri Vishnu's Charana Kamalotpati Subhaga Ditya Shri Lakshmir Eva Suranarer Archa Charana Bhavani Bhartur Yashirasi Vibhavati Adbhuta Guna. So first of all, this is not the first verse that Digvijay Pandit recited. It was in the middle that Mahaprabhu picked. So he was already reciting the glorification, the verses glorifying Mother Ganga. And this is one of the middle of the verse that he recited. So let's understand. I myself, I want to give a disclaimer that I'm not a Sanskrit scholar. I don't know anything about Sanskrit grammar, not even the G of that Sanskrit grammar. But with the help of the Vaishnavas, Gurujanas, our Srila Prabhupada, and of course, with the help of Hari Parshad Prabhu, His Grace Hari Parshad Prabhu, I got a little bit of understanding, and that understanding I would like to share with all of you. So yesterday, Her Grace Preeti Vilasni Mataji also, I was sitting with her and we discussed that, we churned this verse. So very, very grateful to association of all the Vaishnavas. So we'll just understand and let's see if we are able to find out and stick to what Srila Prabhupada has pointed out in the purports. Because in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada has made, the elaborate description of the 5 faults, and the 5 ornaments in this verse. So let's see. So what Mahaprabhu said, that there are 5 faults. So just concentrate on this verse and we will see. Okay, so 5 faults and 5 alankars. He said, I will pinpoint to you. So what are the 5 faults? The first fault, he said, is avimrishta vidyamsa. Okay, now what is an avimrishta vidyamsa is a kind of a fault, and it occurred twice in this particular verse. So these are the 2 faults. Fault is one, which is avimrishta vidyamsa. That is the first fault. But because the same fault is repeated twice, it is regarded as 2. Right? Now the third is viruddhamati krit. And 4th is punhar ukti, and 5th is bhagna krama. So these are the 5 faults that Mahaprabhu pointed out. Avimrishta vidyamsa, which occurred twice in the verse, then viruddhamati, then punarukti, and then bhagna krama. So these are the 5 faults that Mahaprabhu pointed out. Now we'll see what is amrishta vidyamsa. So to understand what is amrishta vidyamsa, so actually mrishta means clean. So naturally avamrishta means something which is not clean, right? And vidyamsa, he explains. So vidyamsa means predicate. So to understand this fault, first we have to understand what is a subject and what is a predicate, right? In English language, when we say that he is learned man, yeah, or we say that this boy is good because he listens to his parents. This boy is good. So this itself is a good sentence. Or this is a good boy. We'll say this way. This is a good boy. Yeah, we'll say he is a good boy because he listens to his parents. Now, this is my own thing, so just forgive me and excuse me. Try to understand what is a subject and predicate. So he is a good boy because he is a good boy. So he itself is a subject and a good boy is a predicate. Because he listens to his parents, it becomes an entire sentence which becomes the predicate of the subject he. That means somebody is describing about a person and he's telling that he is a good boy because he listens to his parents, right? So this makes a sense. But if somebody says, they don't say he is a good boy, but they say, good boy he is. So does it make sense? It doesn't make sense. Good boy he is. So similarly, this is avamrishta vidyamsa. It explains where, so there are two things, we have to understand that there are two things. First is vidhaya and vidhaya vachak, and another is anuvad vachak. What is vidhaya vachak? Vidhaya vachak is in which we don't know about whom we are saying anything, something which is unknown. That is vidhaya vachak. And anuvad vachak means that, we know that somebody is being glorified, so which is quite, very much relevant, very much substantial, very much understandable, right? So there are two things, vidhaya vachak and another is agyat vachak, means vidhaya vachak and anuvad vachak. So anuvad vachak means that a subject should come first. He is a good boy. So that makes a perfect sentence. Now, if somebody says, good boy he is, so that means the subject is last and the description of that boy, good boy he is, that good boy has come in front of the word he. The predicate has come first, then the subject. So this is a fault that Mahaprabhu brings up the point. He says that this is a fault which is avamrishta vidyamsha. So this is the dosh, this is the fault. So then he said, now in this verse, if we see, he says, Mahatvam Gangaya Satatam Idam. So here Mahaprabhu is saying that you want to say that this, Idam means this. Why this? Because he has already recited so many verses on Mother Ganga. He was glorifying Mother Ganga. And Mahaprabhu just picked out one verse. So already everybody knows that what is the topic. The topic is that Mother Ganga has to be glorified. And that was the topic given to Digvijay Pandit by Mahaprabhu. So naturally, everybody knows that whatever verses will be coming out will be in the glorification of Mother Ganga. So now what he's saying is Mahatvam Gangaya Satatamidam, that the greatness of Ganga is this. Greatness of Ganga is this, that she emanated from the lotus feet of Sri Vishnu. Ye Esha Sri Vishnu Charana Kamalotpati Subhaga, that she has become auspicious. She has become auspicious because she has emanated from the lotus feet of Mahavishnu. So Digvijay Pandit wants to say that Mother Ganga is great because she has emanated from the lotus feet of Mahavishnu, of lotus feet of Vishnu. This sentence makes complete sense. But while reciting the verses, he is saying Mahatvam Gangaya Satatamidam, means he's saying the greatness of Ganga is this, that she emanated from the lotus feet of Vishnu. So he's saying that this is a fault. This is a fault. Why? Because you have used the predicate first and the subject later. So instead of using Mahatvam Gangaya Satatamidam, you should have said Idam Mahatvam Gangayam Satatam. So this word Idam has to come first. When the predicate comes first than the subject, it becomes a fault. So that's what Mahaprabhu pointed out. So he said that this idam has to come first, because we know that entire verses are the glorification of Mother Ganga. So now saying idam later, this is a fault that your composition has. It should be idam mahatvam gangaya, but you recited as mahatvam gangaya satatam idam, which is wrong. Even Prabhupada in the purport poem pointed out that he is a learned man. This word, this complete sentence makes sense. But if someone says learned man he is, it doesn't sound proper. Even if in English language also it doesn't sound proper, then what to talk about this Sanskrit grammar? So this is the first fault that Mahaprabhu pointed out. And what is that first fault? That first fault is avimrishta vidhyamsa. Now this fault occurred twice in his composition. So this is the first place where mahatvam gangayam idam and idam mahatvam gangayam satatam. It has to be idam mahatvam gangayam, but Digvijay quoted as mahatvam gangayam satatam idam. So this is the first place. Now the same fault, which is avimrishta vidhyamsa, occurred twice. So where is the second place? He said is Dvitiya Shri Lakshmi. So Dvitiya Shri Lakshmi. In this also, if we see, then we saw that two things, right? Vidhay Vachak and Anuvad Vachak. Anuvad Vachak is a subject and Vidhay Vachak is the predicate, which has to come after the subject, right? So now in the second one, Dvitiya, right? He says, Dvitiya Shri Lakshmir Eva. So what this Digvijay Pandit wants to say is, he wants to compare Mother Ganga as Shri Lakshmi, that she is second goddess of fortune. Like, Eva means like. She is like goddess of fortune. That means she's a second goddess of fortune, like Mother Lakshmi. So his intention was to say the same thing. But what happened? Because now Dvitiya, what is Dvitiya? Now Dvitiya is Vidhay Vachak. Now it has come first. And Lakshmi is actually Anuvad Vachak, to whom he is comparing with. Right? Now, again in this, Dvitiya, which is Vidhay Vachak, has preceded that Anuvad Vachak. It has come before. So this subject, that predicate has come before the subject. So Dvitiya Shri Lakshmir Eva, when he says Dvitiya Shri Lakshmir Eva, it means that there is some another Lakshmi, there is some second Lakshmi. So we all know Narayan has Lakshmi Devi as his wife, as his consort. Now saying Dvitiya Lakshmi Eva means that he is comparing Mother Ganga as some other Lakshmi, that second Lakshmi. That means Narayan has two Lakshmis, not the one Lakshmi, but with the second Lakshmi, this Digvijay Pandit is comparing Mother Ganga to. So this also he said, this is the second place where the same fault is repeated. That is avamrishta vidhyamsa. So the point is that subject has to come first and then it should be followed by the predicate. So vidhay vachak should be, first should be the anuvad vachak, means the subject, and then followed by vidhay vachak. If that vidhay vachak come first, then it becomes a fault in Sanskrit grammar. So this is this amvrishta vidhyamsa, which occurs twice in the verse, and that's what Mahaprabhu explained. Now, third fault, he said, is viruddhamati krit, means which creates a contradiction. So what contradiction is being created? Then the contradiction, he said, is 1 minute. Bhavani Bhartur. Yeah, thank you. So this is the contradiction that he said. That is Viruddha Matikrit. So what is the contradiction? The contradiction is, what is the meaning of bhava? Bhava means to become, right? When we say Chiranjeevi Bhava, or we say Yashashvi Bhava, Kirtiman Bhava, means you become Kirtiman, or you become Chiranjeevi, means long life. So Bhava means to become, right? And similarly, this entire material world is also known as Bhava Sagar. Why Bhava Sagar? Because in this entire ocean of material existence, we become something. We have 8,400,000 species of life. So we take birth in the womb, we take shelter in the womb of one species and we become something. Therefore, this entire material existence is known as Bhava Sagar. And our seed-giving father is who? Shambhu, is Lord Shiva. Yes, the ultimate is Lord Shri Krishna, as in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that Aham Bija Pradapita, that I am the seed-giving father. But from the glance of Vishnu, this entire material existence comes into existence. This entire material world comes into existence. So Lord Shiva is known as Bhava, and his wife is known as Bhavani. So when somebody says Bhavani, itself means that we are referring to the wife of Lord Shiva. And Bhartur means master. Like we say in that famous verse, Gopi Bhartur Pad Kamalayor Das Das Anudas. Right? Gopi Bhartur means one who is the master of the gopis, one who is the husband of the gopis, or one who is the maintainer of the gopis. Gopi Bhartur. Padakamalayur, to his lotus feet, I want to serve as the servant of the servant of the servant. That is the meaning of Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur, Das Das Anudas. So Bhartur means master. Now Bhavani itself means Lord Shiva, Lord Shiva's wife. And Bhartur itself means master. So this becomes a contradiction, right? Because when we say Bhavani Bhartur, it seems that we are referring, because Bhavani already means the wife of Lord Shiva. Now, if we are adding the Bharta or the husband to the word Bhavani, it means that we are referring that Lord Shiva, that Lord Parvati has another husband, the husband of the wife of Lord Shiva. Bhavani Bhartur means the husband of the wife of Lord Shiva. Now, this is a contradictory. It means that wife of Lord Shiva means Parvati Devi has some another husband, right? So this is the Viruddha Kritak. This is the Viruddha. Another fault, that is Viruddha Mati. This is the Viruddha Mati Krit, which creates a contradiction in the mind of the people who hear. When you say Bhavani Bhartur, it seems as if Bhavani means Mother Parvati has some another husband, because Bhavani itself means the wife of Lord Shiva. But if you are saying Bhavani Bhartur, it means that the husband of the wife of Lord Shiva. And that means that Mother Parvati has some second husband, which creates a contradiction in the mind of the people who hears it. So this was the third fault. Now the fourth fault is Punarakti means the fault of redundancy, the repetition that comes. So in the verse, if we say the Punarakti is the redundancy. Redundancy, why? Because when we say Vibhavati, Vibhavati means that this Mother Ganga flourishes on the head of Lord Shiva. So it makes a complete sense. Now, if suppose, again, it's my own personal thing. Now, if I say the example that she danced beautifully, she is a perfect dancer, she danced beautifully. Now, when I end the word beautifully, that means that verb is used. Beautifully, beautiful is an adjective, but when I add beautifully, it becomes verb. So she danced beautifully. So that itself means that the actions or the hand movements or the leg movements that lady was or that devotee was making was perfect. That's why the dance appeared very beautiful. So when I say she danced beautifully, that implies that her hand movements, her leg movements, her body movements were perfect. And that's why her dance appeared beautiful. So he is saying, when you are saying that, so Mahaprabhu points out that when this Digvijay Pandit is saying that Shirasi Bhavati, that she flourishes, Mother Ganga flourishes on the head of Lord Shiva, implies that she is endowed with so wonderful qualities that she has the position on the head of Lord Shiva. So that itself has completed the sentence.
Not yet. I need you to make spell.
Thank you. That itself has completed the sentence. Then he said, why you added the word Adbhuta Guna? Means wonderful qualities. This is the fault of redundancy. When you start repeating the things in a composition. So this is the fault. That is punakti, means punar ukti, means the fault of redundancy. That is the fourth fault. Fifth fault, he said, is bhagna krama. Bhagna krama means the fault of deviation. Now, what is the fault of deviation? The bhagna krama, he says that if you see the verse, in the verse, there is a repetition, there is an alliteration used, right? That is anupras alankar. What is that anupras alankar? When the sound is repeated in the word, right? Now, it has to be repeated in all the sentences. If it is not repeated in all the sentences, it is a fault. Like you see the first verse, the word ta is repeated so many times. Mahatvam Gangaya Satatam Abhakti Nitaranam. So 5 times this word ta has been used. Yadesha, and then third line we see the word ra is being used. Dvitya Shri Lakshmir Evasura Narar Archana Archaya Charana. So again the word ra is used. So this is the alliteration. Then in the last sentence, bha is used. Bhavani Bhartur Yashirasi Vibhavati Adbhuta Guna. So the bha is used 4 times here. So he says this is actually an ornament, but because this alliteration is not used in the second sentence, it has become a fault. So you have used this alliteration in the first, in the third, and in the fourth line. But this alliteration, this anupras alankar, this repetition of the word is not there in the second. See, in the second, there is no repetition. Yad Esha Shri Vishnu's Charana Kamalotpatti Subhaga. There is no word that is repeated. So he said, now this becomes the fault, which is Bhagna Krama, the fault of deviation. So these are the 5 faults that Mahaprabhu pointed out. It's already 12:05. We don't have time to say the 5 glorification, but let's continue with the verse of Bhagavat, Caitanya Bhagavat, and then we'll see that how much we can cover. If time permits, we can see the 5 ornaments also that Mahaprabhu pointed out. Okay, so Mahatvam Gangaya, so this verse we complete. Prabhu bole esa kala shabda alankara shastra mate shuddha haite vishama apara. The Lord said, according to the scriptures, all the words and literally ornaments that you have used so far are far from correct. Means that there are some faults, and those faults Mahaprabhu pointed out, and we saw those 5 faults. Tumi yadi acha kona abhipraya kari bola dekhi khile nara garanga Shri Hari. Then Mahaprabhu asked, now you tell me, why have you made all these faults? What was your intention when you were comparing all these ornaments? What was your intentions? Why such things come out from your mouth, from your mind? Why such things were composed? एता बड़ा सरस्वती पुत्र दिग्विजय सिद्धांतना स्फुरे किछु बुद्धि गेला खाई. As soon as he heard those 5 faults that were pointed out by Mahaprabhu, and of course the 5 good points, Digvijay, who was the son, now Vrindavan Das Thakur, he is regarding him as Saraswati Putra, the son of Saraswati. He was unable to explain, for his intelligence has left him. Buddhi gela kahi. Buddhi, mati kho gayi thi. You know, he practically lost all his intelligence after hearing the words of Nimai Pandit. सता पंचा विप बोले विप्रा प्रभु देते नारे यही बोले ताई दोषे गौरंगा रे सुंदरे. Whatever little attempt he made to defend himself, you know, he tried to defend, but it was all refuted by Lord Gaura Sundar. Shakala pratibha palela kona sthane apanana bhuje vipre ki bole apane. It appeared that Digvijay's intelligence has taken leave of him, for he didn't even know what he was saying. He was not able to refute the statements of Nimai Pandit. Prabhu bole ethaku ka pada kichu ara padite o purva mata shakti nahi ara. Then Mahaprabhu said, okay, leave this verse. You are not able to defend that why you used these faults, you know, why you used these compositions. You are not able to explain. Okay, leave it. Let's recite some another verse. So now Mahaprabhu said, okay, let's do the systematic analysis of some second verse. But then Digvijay was unable to recite like before. So previously, like a gush of wind, like a cyclone, those verses were coming out. But as soon as Mahaprabhu pointed out the faults in just one verse, Digvijay was speechless. He couldn't say anything. He was not able to recite like before. Kona chitra thana sammoha prabhu sthane vede opayena moha Yanara Vidyamane. It is not unusual that Digvijay was bewildered in front of the Lord. Why it was not unusual? Because even the Vedas are bewildered in the presence of the Lord. Muyanti Yatsuraya. The Supreme Lord even bewilders the great demigods, the sages. So what to talk about this mere mortal soul, this Digvijay Pandit, who was bewildered in the presence of the Supreme Lord. So we'll stop here. I know I'm already 9 minutes ahead of my time. But because we are short in time, I'll not say the 5 alliterations, the ornaments that Mahaprabhu pointed out. But yes, these were the 5 faults that Mahaprabhu pointed out in the work of that Digvijay Pandit. So we'll stop here. Thank you all so much. Again, I like to say that no credit goes to me. And it is all from Srila Prabhupada's purport, and definitely His Grace Haripashad Prabhu. You know, he shared a Hindi document with me, that entire commentary on this verse, which really helped me also to understand. And of course, yesterday with Preeti Vilasni Mataji, we tried to crack out this verse. So all credit goes to all of you. So thank you all so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hey, Bol Mataji, thank you so much for taking this up and cracking it so nicely. When, as always, when you explain, it just gets inside very easily. It's very easy to digest. So thank you, first of all, for taking the responsibility of explaining it. And a big thank you to Haripashad Prabhu. Really, I only understood it half. Now I saw in everything there was so much more. And even the exact identification of the subject and predicate was very, very vague when we but now it is so much more clear, and so many additions to what was existing in the purport. So it's so beautiful, Mataji. Thank you so much. Definitely a class I would preserve for the rest of my life. Thank you. So beautiful. Mataji, you're on mute.
I'm saying thank you, Mataji, but definitely this class is not to be preserved. I don't know what I spoke today, just like Digvijay Pandit. I was just speaking, but even I haven't realized it properly because
Digvijay Pandit had 5 faults, right? And 5 beautifications. So yours was only beautification, no fault. Very partial, Prabhu. Very nice. Very, very nice. So nicely done. Haribol.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for your kind words.
हरे कृष्णा HG कीर्तिदा सुंदरी माता जी कोटि कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम। श्रील प्रभुपाद श्रील गुरुदेव की जय। श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ की जय। श्री श्री चैतन्य भागवत श्री चैतन्य चरणामृत की जय। माता जी, वन नाइस पॉइंट दैट यू कम इन अवर लेवल। आप लोग का लेवल तो बहुत हाई है, पर वो लेवल पे आप हमें नहीं सिखाते। यू कम इन अवर लेवल एंड टीच अस। श्री श्री चैतन्य भागवत श्री श्री चैतन्य चरणामृत। व्हेन वी रीड माता जी, बी ऑनेस्ट, मैं तो एकदम कीड़ी के पैर जितने वैष्णवी कि व्हेन आई रीड श्री श्री चैतन्य चरणामृत माता जी, आई एम नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड इजीली। बट जब सीनियर वैष्णव के से हम जब कथा सुनते हैं माता जी, छोटे 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 पॉइंट भी क्लियर होते हैं। कोटि कोटि दंडवत। क्यों? क्योंकि उनकी जपा बहुत अटेंटिवली होता है। कोटि कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम माता जी। श्रील प्रभुपाद श्रील गुरुदेव की जय। श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ की जय। एंड व्हेन वी हियर श्री चैतन्य भागवत श्री चैतन्य चरणामृत और श्री भागवतम माता जी, इट्स डायरेक्टली इफेक्ट टू अवर जपा माता जी। हरि हरि गौरांगा। Without the association of Vaishnava, senior Vaishnava, we cannot perform our daily duty, whether it's a material duty or whether it's a spiritual duty. That much potency in all Bhakti Sangha teachers, teachers Krishna Katha Mata ji. Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gopinath ki jai. Yes, Mata ji, I also hear that Prabhuji's lecture when after 9:30, that is India's morning time. Mata ji, it's touched too hard. वो हमें हिलाते थे, वो प्रभु जी का नाम भूल गए। हरि हरि गौरांगा माता जी। कोटि कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम टू ऑल ऑफ यू। HG प्रीति विलासिनी, HG सुखेश्वरी दासी माता जी। एवरी वेडनेसडे प्लीज जॉइन। सुख सागरी माता जी, please forgive me. Teaching us a sloka mata ji. In India, when there is a counselor meeting, they 36 Vaishnava are there. So all 36 Vaishnavas are वो ऐसे ही सब एक ही श्लोका उसको रिपीट करते हैं माता जी। फर्स्ट 3-4 टाइम अवर काउंसलर इज स्पीकिंग। सो माता जी, एट द एंड ऑफ 36 वो श्लोका बाय हार्ट हो जाता है। सो दिस इज द पोटेंसी ऑफ Senior Vaishnava Association, and we write down in a kitchen, in a fridge, in a study table, in a dining table, or everywhere we write down that sloka, and next time we will repeat that sloka. So by that way we learn by heart the sloka, Mataji. Hari Hari Gauranga, Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you so much, Vrinda Gopika Mataji. I don't know about others, but myself also have to come onto the level of an elementary student to understand first. So even I'm on the elementary level, Mataji. But thank you for your association. I know today's class was very technical, so please forgive me for that. Okay, anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Kirtida Sundari Mataji, thank you so much for this class. And yes, like what Vrinda Gopika Mataji also said, you made it a lot easier for us to understand. I mean, we have heard this from a few different speakers, but it makes a lot of sense now. Thank you so much for explaining it perfectly, Mataji. Mataji, do you have time to do the 5 alankars or the ornaments, or that will be covered next time?
I have all the time, but I don't know about the time of others. So whatever you all say, I can follow that.
Preeti Vilasini Mataji,
Mataji, please go ahead for 10-15 minutes, Mataji. And please explain.
15 minutes, it will hardly take 5 minutes.
Mataji, please, Radhe.
Yeah, so then Mahaprabhu pointed out the five, the glorification. So Mahaprabhu said that essentially this is about the 5 faults I have pointed out, but don't be so disheartened. There are good things also. And those good things Mahaprabhu pointed out. Well, let me pull out that verse and then we can just share. So yeah, so first of all, Mahaprabhu said that after Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that when Mahaprabhu pointed out those 5 faults, Mahaprabhu said that there are some good things also. But before pointed out good things, Mahaprabhu said that if there is some one single fault in the composition, that disturbs the entire composition. And then he says that even though, just like a white dhoti, the white cloth, the cloth is pure white, but one black dot on that entire cloth, spoils the beauty of the cloth. As soon as you open that white cloth and there is one small single black dot, the eyes will go only onto that black dot. So he says that one black dot spoils the entire whiteness of that white cloth. So similarly, he says that if somebody's body is very beautifully bedecked with beautiful jewels, but if there is one spot of white leprosy marks, then the entire body, it becomes abominable. So similarly, he said that your composition has many, not only 5, maybe 10, 12, 20. There are many alliterations, good ornaments you have used, but just, few faults have made the entire composition faulty. Then he says that I'll tell you the 5 good things also. Pancha alankara e suna vichara, dui shabda alankara, tina artha alankara. So 5 things he said. First is dui shabda alankara. I'll not read the verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita in interest of time. I'll just in a layman language try to explain the 5 good points. So the good alliterations, the good ornaments that Mahaprabhu brought, the embellishments that Mahaprabhu pointed out. So first he's saying there are 2 ornaments of sound and 3 ornaments of meaning. So what is the first ornament of sound? So he said that there is a sound ornament of alliterations in 3 lines. And in the combination, like he said, that we saw like the first line says ta. I'll again share you the verse so that you can have the verse with you, so you can understand it nicely. Yeah, so the first verse, so the first line had the word ta, mahatvam satatam abhati nitaram. And the second, not second, but the third has Ra, Dvitiya Shri Lakshmir Evasura Narar Archaya Charana. And the last line has Bha, Bhavani Bharatur Yashirasi Vibhavati Adbhuta Guna. So all these is the alliterations. So this is, he said, this is a sound ornament that is coming. The first line has Ta, which has occurred 5 times. This third line repeats Ra 5 times. And the fourth line repeats Bha, that occur 4 times. So this arrangement is definitely pleasing to the sound. Why? Because there is a repetition. And when the repetition is there, it is pleasing to the ear. So this is the first ornament, the sound, he said, this ornament of sound, while speaking. So this is the first. And then he said second, he said that Shri Shabde, Lakshmi Shabde, like you repeated, when we see the verse, it says Shri Lakshmi. So Shri Lakshmi also, it's a sound ornament, right? Because as soon as you hear, it looks like it's a fault of redundancy, because Shri also means Lakshmi and Lakshmi also means Lakshmi. So looks like it's a fault of redundancy, it's a repetition, but it is pleasing to hear. Why it is pleasing to hear? It doesn't looks like it is a fault of redundancy. Why? Because here Shri refers to the opulence. So it brings out the different meaning altogether. So there is no tinge of repetition here. It brings out the different meaning. Shri means opulence and Lakshmi means Mother Lakshmi. So Mother Lakshmi, who is full of opulence. So that is the sound ornamentation. So 2 sound ornamentations, which is very, very pleasing to one's ears. And then he said, now I'll give you 3 ornaments of meaning. Now meaning is being defined, where the words has been used. So here he said, when you said the word Lakshmir Eva, now you see the words? It says Lakshmir Eva. Lakshmir Eva means like Lakshmi, like Lakshmi Devi. So you are comparing, you are giving an analogy, upama, किसी के साथ किसी की उपमा करना. So you are comparing Mother Ganga as Mother Lakshmi, as goddess of fortune. So this is the upama alankar that you have used, right? And then he said, there is another ornament you have used, which is virodhabhas, a contradictory. Why contradictory? Because there in the verse you said that charana kamalotpatti, Kamala Utpatti Charana. So it means like it's a Virodhabhas, because we know that the Utpatti of a flower, Utpatti means the Paida hona, like the flower comes out, the flower grows in the water, right? But you are saying is Charana Kamalotpatti, that the flower, that the Ganga is taking birth from the flower. Actually, the flower takes birth in water or in Ganga. The lotus flower comes from Mother Ganga. But your sound, the composition says that the water, the Ganga has taken birth from the lotus flower, which is contradiction. How can it be possible? How can a water comes out from a lotus flower? The lotus flower comes out from water, not the water comes out from the lotus flower. But it seems, contradictory. It's a virodhabhas, but it has become an alankar. Why? It is used in the service of the Supreme Lord. When you say that the water is coming from the lotus flower, means the lotus flower like lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. From there, Ganga is emanating. So you have compared the flower to the feet of the Supreme Lord. And from there, the Ganga has taken birth. So though it seems to be extraordinary, but because it is used in the service of the Supreme Lord, it is no more a contradiction. Rather, it has become an ornament. It has become an ornament that due to the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord, the Ganga has taken birth from the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So he said that this is the second, the meaning. What do we say that? Tina Artha Alankara, the 3 ornaments of meaning. So first meaning, now second. Now what is the third meaning, he said? The third meaning, he said, is, 1 minute. Let me see, I'm forgetting the third meaning. Yeah, the third meaning, he said that the real glory of Mother Ganga is that she has grown from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. So now you have given an hypothesis. Now this is the Anuman Alankar. Anuman Alankar, why? Because now the water is coming from the lotus feet of the flower. The lotus feet. The flower, the feet of the Supreme Lord has been compared to the lotus flower from where the Ganga is emanating. So meaning is so beautiful that it's not the ordinary feet, it's the lotus feet, the lotus-like flower. The feet are like lotus flowers. That's how Lord, the Supreme Lord's lotus feet is being described by you. So it is from the lotus from the feet of the lotus flower of the Supreme Lord, this Ganga is emanating. So you have made such an hypothesis. It's an Anuman Alankar that you have used. So he says that this is the third, meaning, the ornament of meaning that is being used by you. And therefore, these 5 together, 2 ornaments of sound and 3 ornaments of meaning, that makes your composition very beautiful. So he says, right, you see here, Shri Vishnu's Charana Kamalotpitti Subhaga. You are so Subhaga. Subhaga, here Prabhupada translates as fortunate. You are so Saubhagyashali ho. Ganga is such a fortunate that it has emanated It has come from the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And that feet has compared to be a kamala, as a lotus flower. It is generated from the lotus flower of the Supreme Lord. So these are the 5, positive points that Mahaprabhu brought forward. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Mataji. That was beautiful.
Jai Ho. Koti koti dandavat.
Okay, so thank you all so much. It's already 12:27. So we'll stop here. Yashomati?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you so much. It was very, very technical, but whatever you explained very, very beautifully, all the faults and the glorification of that verses. It's real nice, and it is very clear too. So this is very nice. I like that thing, all the thing. And I like one more thing, whatever you say about that. If you want to give some false finding or something, glorification, first you have to understand that thing. So this is very nice. It is really nice. I like that. But Mataji, sometimes about me, I am talking about me, that I understand everything, but I don't know how to explain it because my English is not that much good, whatever you guys have. So sometimes I don't speak anything. So this is my, whatever I say.
Mataji, language can never be a barrier. Even my first language is not English. I also commit a lot of mistakes while speaking English language.
Yeah.
But the point is that in whichever language we are able to communicate, we cannot bind Krishna in any language as such, right?
Yeah.
Whichever language we can express ourselves is the best.
And sometimes, even though I forget to something word when I want to speak something, but I forget. So this is my most difficulty for this.
You can always express yourselves, your thoughts, your realizations in Hindi, and a speaker or somebody else can translate it for you. So this should not become a barrier, or this should not become a subject matter that, because my English is not good, so I'm not able to speak. In whichever language you want to share your realizations, it's perfectly fine.
But this is very nice. All the classes by Krishna's mercy, I am so fortunate to have this Sangha and all, like your good teachers all are. So I'm so fortunate about that.
Thank you.
I could understand more deeply some, before whatever I told before that, when I was young, at that time I didn't like the philosophy. I just let it go. Like this class, like a technical thing. I was only the Bhakta Charitra I was reading like that.
Which is good.
So now
which is good. We have to relish those rasas also. But at the same time, some siddhanta has to be cleared. First comes the tattva and then comes the rasa part. So if the tattva is not clear, then we'll not be able to relish the rasa. So first you have to understand the tattva and then the rasa.
Yes, right, Mataji, I agree. I hope Krishna will give me that thing.
Prabhupada says Chaitanya Charitamrita is a PhD level. Like that he doesn't say, he says it's a PhD level, so he means it. He means it because all the characters in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they are showing so much immense love for Mahaprabhu that if somebody doesn't know who Mahaprabhu is, that naturally that love for Mahaprabhu will not come. Unless and until you know who Mahaprabhu is, how munificent he is, how magnanimous he is, we cannot have that bhav with Mahaprabhu. We cannot even speak of Mahaprabhu if we don't know who Mahaprabhu is. So this Chaitanya Charitamrita is definitely a PhD level because all the characters, all the parshads of Mahaprabhu are there in this, and they are depicting the high class level of love for Mahaprabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
But thank you for
Thank
your
you,
association.
Mataji.
One day, it will. We
I
can
hope one
understand
day.
all things in one day, but
I pray Krishna, yeah, I pray Krishna.
one day will come when we
I
will.
have to wait like Shabri Mataji.
Everybody are in the same boat, Mataji. We all are in the same. We all have to wait a long, long, long time. One lifetime is also not enough to understand.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mataji, for your very enlightening and good, nice class, sweet class. And we are very grateful to you, Mataji. We look forward to your association again in future. And if nobody have any question, can we end the call, Mataji? Your permission?
Yes, sure, Mataji, definitely.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Caitanya Bhagavat ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Her Grace Kirtida Sundari Mataji ki jai, Hari Bol.
Ki
so
jai. All the
much,
assembled
Mataji.
devotees ki jai.
Jai, Hari
Mataji,
Bol.
koti koti dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna ending the call now. Thank you, dear devotees.